Welcome to Dear Sandy. I'm Sandy Galiff, a member of the New York State Assembly, representing parts of northern Westchester and Putnam County. And today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite places to go, Teatown Reservation, and its 50th year, celebrating so much activity during that period of time. So it's a pleasure to have my two guests with me today, and I'd first like to introduce them. First, Kevin Carter, who's Executive Director of Teatown. Welcome.
Thank you, Sandy. It's great to be here.
Good to have you here. And Mike Rubbo, who's the Director of Science Conservation. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks, Sandy. It's great to be here as well.
50 years, and we were, just talking about this wonderful, wonderful place, which is in, Kevin, tell me the towns. It's like in a section of northern Westchester. It hits a lot of different communities.
Right. Teatown is actually, our mailing address is in Ossining, but we straddle several towns because our preserve has grown to 1,000 acres. So, and Mike can give you a sense of how many acres approximately in each town. But yeah, we draw from a lot of the local area, so a lot of our audience comes from all over the county.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the bulk of the preserve is in Yorktown, but we have a good chunk in Cortland as well, and a little slice in Newcastle.
Right. Well, on behalf of the New York State Assembly, we have a proclamation to give you, and it's to celebrate the 50 years of Teatown Lake Reservation. And this was an opportunity for everybody in the state of New York actually to know about your years of service and involvement with the environment. And, I think about all the kids and the families that have over those 50 years enjoyed Teatown so very much in all of those communities and beyond. So we're going to let you have this, Kevin, to put somewhere.
Thank you.
And I'm sure there'll be many, many more as you go through this 50th year.
Thank you. It's very kind of you. We're really proud to have this, and we'll display it proudly at Teatown.
Terrific, terrific. Okay, well let's talk about what now in this 50th year. Are there special things that you're working on? When an anniversary is coming along, sometimes you highlight different things. It's a birthday party year. So is this just something special, Kevin, that everybody should know about?
Yes, absolutely, Sandy. So Teatown's celebrating its 50th birthday this year, and it's an opportunity for us to look back on our history. And Teatown really began as a gift of lands for public use. That's really what it was in the beginning, and it became so much more over the decades as people became involved, because the Teatown story is really the story of passionate volunteers. It's a volunteer organization.
So when the land was first given over, was it just, I guess it was just for people to walk on for trails, or maybe nothing was happening with it, as it first started?
It was the vision was to keep the land available for public use and enjoyment. There really wasn't much other philosophy at that point. The county was actually offered the land, but in the absence of an endowment, the county didn't accept the gift. Brooklyn Botanic Gardens, who had a research outpost station at that time at Kitchewan, was then approached by the Swope family, and they agreed to take the land because they already had a sort of similar model there, and that was when Teatown was born in 1963. And like so many great stories of volunteer passion that I'm sure you've heard, this is another one, no exception at Teatown, that the volunteers brought the lifeblood to it, creating new events, creating new programs. And a really interesting thing about Teatown's 50 years is it really mirrors the history of the environmental movement in the United States. So Teatown, in many cases, is on the leading edge of those things. So when it starts developing early education programs, now which are much more common, but it was really on the leading edge of a lot of those types of programs. And driven by the passion of the volunteers.
So back then, you're right. I mean, there was such a long period of time where I don't think we thought about our environment at all. I guess we just played in the woods and whatever else, but never really thought about preserving it, caring for it, or thinking what we as people were doing to impact our environment in a negative way. So, so you're saying this was like an education center, really, for people to come and learn about better ways to contribute to preservation and making our state and our communities, I guess, as pristine as possible.
No, absolutely. And part of the 50th, we're honoring our 17 past presidents and chairmen at Teatown. And so many interesting stories, so many different walks of life, different backgrounds and expertise coming into the fold, and all of them being charmed and enchanted by Teatown. And I think when we look into that story, you see there was a tremendous amount of vision, even though it may not have been as important then, and people were maybe taking for granted these experiences. There was a lot of vision that this is becoming more important. And of course now Teatown, for many, many years there was this sort of dual mission of preserving open space and environmental education. And now Teatown's work has become much more regionally known. And of course Dr. Mike's programs are a big, big part of that. I'm sure he can tell you a little bit about the Environmental Leaders Learning Alliance, ELA, which is a huge part of our name really getting out there, and our work really impacting impacting the society in a different way.
Right. Mike, you were, you were educated in this field, so, and I guess you weren't around 50 years ago. You were a little small. You weren't there. So, the whole environmental education, I'm assuming, has really changed over time, and even maybe since you've been educated. Has there been a tremendous change?
Yeah, it's become much more sophisticated. In the earlier days, it was about getting outside and interacting with your environment. Nowadays, it's much more focused on science and rigor. It's collecting data. It's analyzing data. It's become much more scientific in its approach.
So, what do you do at Teatown? Are what? I'm just thinking of. You have some areas at Teatown where you've had invasive species that I guess have come in. I mean, that's become a very critical issue, I think, right now.
It is,
and I think you've really been working on that, have you not?
We've been trying to. We've created one area on our preserve where we're restoring a 3-acre section of forest. We call it Wildflower Woods. So it's really to serve as an outdoor exhibit area to show people what a healthy forest should look like. So what we've done is take this 3-acre area, we put up a fence around it to keep the deer out, because that's another big problem that we have in our region. And we're removing the invasive plants, and we're planting with native plant species. Because many people, they go out in the woods and they see green and they think it's a healthy forest, when really that's not the case. Our forests are in pretty dire condition here in Westchester County. So we're working towards creating this healthy forest. We're adding educational signage, developing programs to really to show the public what a healthy forest should be and what it could be.
So when people come in, just like with invasive species, they can come and get information from you that they can take back to their own pieces of property, I suppose.
We have information, and it's an invasive species. It's it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of approach depending on the plant that you're working with, but we do have recommendations for different species on things that you can do at home.
I would assume 50 years ago, I've lived in the community since '69, but I don't know that we had the deer population that we probably have now. I don't remember that as being a big issue for most people, and I don't know what the impact of Teatown with the deer has been. It's probably not been so positive. Is there also a focus that you have? It's a very controversial issue sometimes about the deer, but are you doing certain things at Teatown dealing with the deer?
We're studying the issue. It is a real problem. What's happening now is the deer population has become so basically it's exploded. It probably started in the late 70s and into the 80s and 90s where it really became a problem. This was due to a variety of factors, the development of the landscape. Deer tend to thrive in landscape where there's lots of development, because there's lots of what are called edges between forests and your yard, where they love to eat because there's lots of food. And the loss of predators, so the population has exploded. So we're studying the deer population at Teatown. What we're finding is that the forest isn't regenerating itself. So there's no new trees coming in. So we call it's a forest of senior citizen trees.
That's not good.
No,
if we
it's
have
not.
one of these big storms or whatever, try to get rid of the trees that way. Oh my goodness.
And what happens is when the trees fall down, what comes in? Pretty much just invasive species. So it's an issue that we're studying very closely right now and looking at management options.
So, Kevin, do you work with, as you're reviewing all of this, you're getting information, gathering information. Do you work with certain groups about, what you're finding, colleges, cooperative extensions, or, what is your network that you have from what you're doing at Teatown?
Teatown, was really pleased to find when I came, already had a really strong tradition of partnering with other organizations. We are part of environmental monitoring group that Mike actually started and led that reaches all over the state. I know Mianus River Gorge, Mohonk. What are some of the other organizations involved?
New York Botanical Garden, the Mohonk Preserve, the Hike Preserve, which is up near Albany. So we stretch from basically the city all the way up to Albany. This
Cary?
Yep, Cary Institute of Ecosystem Studies, which is in Dutchess County. It's this collaborative of organizations where we're all working together to study some of these issues like invasive species and overabundant deer.
So what about our Department of Environmental Conservation on a statewide level, or parks or whatever? Do you network at all with state government or county government? As a matter, I mean, we're in Westchester County. You're in Westchester County, and Putnam's not that far away. And is there any kind of network that takes place that way?
Well, there are. There's definitely, nature centers have their own network, ANCA, which is a national body. We have program-related partnerships with the county. Probably the most well-known is through our Eagle Fest, which we do every February.
Oh, yeah. Tell us about Eagle Fest. I've loved that.
Eagle
great.
Fest was started in 2005. And it was, again, we talked about the vision of and the passion of volunteers at Teatown. A longtime volunteer and board member, Charlie Roberto, who is also an avid birder and a bird expert, had been really encouraging Teatown to try this model that he had seen in other parts of the country. And so it was launched in 2005, and the very first year had over 1,000 people in attendance. And I think one of the things that Teatown quickly learned was that this was a great subject matter to bring people in. It was an emotional door through which you could then, people could walk, and then they would become more curious and they'd want to know more about their natural environment. Everybody loves eagles, and it's one of those few, lately there's not so many great environmental success stories, and this happens to be one of those because the eagle was very, very threatened in this area to the point of being endangered. And of course, in recent years, due to a lot of great work up and down the Hudson Valley and around the state, they're back, and they're back in great numbers. And of course, during the wintertime, they can be found in these areas up and down along the Hudson. So Eagle Fest is a great environmental success story, but it's also a great Teatown event. Teatown leads the event and brings in a lot of partner organizations. So we also learned that it was a great way to partner. There was a kind of way we could partner with, various Audubon chapters and a lot of other environmental organizations and nonprofits and governmental agencies participate in Eagle Fest. So they come together.
I don't know how many people you have coming at this point, but it's February or January?
It's in February.
February.
Yep.
And that's when the eagles are. You've chosen that time, I guess, because the eagles are flying, and I see people out there, and I see. Sometimes it's hard to see, but you get those binoculars out, and you know what's going on. You more than 1,000. I mean, now
yeah, we've
you're
had.
just,
I understand the record year where there was 4,000 or 5,000.
4,000 or 5,000, yeah.
right.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. See, and I guess it's from the birders' perspective. I'm new to this area, but I'm learning quickly. But the birders tell me that they know where the eagles are going to be because they can tell by the ice flows and where the ice is in the river and where it's not, and where the eagles are going to be fishing. And then Eagle Fest now has so many viewing spots, and where there's a spot
Up
here,
and down the Hudson
up and
River,
down, so-
right, where the event takes place in Croton.
That's kind of the headquarters
right.
site. But then, there's shuttle buses that take you to several different viewing spots. So it creates this sense of regional awareness, regional community, which is wonderful to be a part of, for Teatown to be a part of. So, and we're always looking to really grow and evolve that event, not just from a participation standpoint, but also from an impact standpoint. We want people to go away, and ultimately we want to create good stewards of the environment. So we want them to go away having learned something that's going to hopefully stimulate them to act differently.
Right. Well, that's certainly an outdoor education event. I know there's that huge tent and lots of different organizations, talking about their work in different places, but also a demonstration with eagles and I think owls, and they're right there in front of you, and it's fascinating.
They fly falcons, which is really neat to see. So yeah, it's a great event.
It's a fun event. So I'm assuming that you'll continue with that. So let's talk about the education with children, because I know I've met high school students that have been at Teatown and doing coursework. I don't know whether it's like an after-school program or you take students in during the school year that are really trying to get into this whole environmental field, science field, and so on. Mike, you probably do. Are you the one responsible for
the older
working with
students?
all those?
Yeah, for the high school students I work with. Most high schools around here have what's called independent science research as a course. So students have to come up with their own research project. They find a mentor and work over the course. They start their sophomore year and go through their senior year, and they enter all the regional science fairs. So I serve as a mentor to students in that program, doing research here on the property of Teatown. We also this year launched a new summer program called the Teatown Environmental Science Academy. And this is an intensive month-long course. It's all day, Monday through Friday. It was 9 to 3. The students came to Teatown and we taught them environmental science. We got out in the field and exposed them to the techniques and the technology that environmental science scientists use to study local ecosystems. It was great fun. The students had to, in that course as well, had to design their own project. We went through the whole scientific method, so they had to identify a question. So I sat them down in the woods and made them sit for 10 minutes and think about research questions, and then we kind of talked about what makes a good question, and then they designed a study and collected data, and then it culminated in a presentation. They did a formal presentation of their research. They were really nervous about it, but they did a great job.
What kind of research, what kind of categories have they gotten involved with?
A suite of different kind of categories we look at. Forest health is a big one, so getting back to the invasive species and the effect of deer on the forests. Water quality, we do quite a bit with trying to understand the effects of different pollutants on lakes and streams and things like that.
And that's a major problem that we have everywhere.
Everywhere.
The algae, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep, we get questions about that all the time in Teatown. So those are probably two of the more major areas of research.
Then I know from, do we have any idea whether they've gone off to college, any of the
Yes,
students, and majored in these fields?
Yep, a number of the students. I've been at Teatown now almost 7 years, so some of the students I first mentored when I first got to Teatown, I've met, they're going to graduate school now. I just talked to a student last week who's finishing up his bachelor's, and he's heading on for probably a PhD in ecology.
Right. That's great. You must feel very good about that.
I do. It really makes it's really fulfilling.
Right.
I mean, it's great to see these students grow, and really become leaders in their field eventually.
Right.
So it's
then
exciting.
we have the little ones. I think there's summer camps or after school
It starts before they can even walk.
Oh my goodness,
But
are
then
you
the pro-
serious?
Yeah, they come in there before they can even walk, which is wonderful to see. The tree hugger program starts, when they're just toddling around.
So what is a tree hugger program?
They
run around and hug
it
trees.
implies there's a lot of tree hugging that goes on, but it's designed to get the kids out in the natural world, which is such a critical part of a child's development.
It must be even harder these days with that computer, even at those ages, sitting in front of them at home with a chair, with a desk.
There's so much that's been written on this subject. Of course, the books of Richard Louv, like No Child Left Inside and Last Child in the Woods. We know that as the world becomes faster paced and technology becomes more prevalent, that our relationship with nature is even more important. So a place like Teatown and the environmental education work we do is we feel we take that really seriously, that role. But the kids, they get involved, and they're so passionate just to have those experiences with it, which at that age are really purely emotional. But we want to create a continuum, so as they grow up, there's all kinds of different layers of experiences and learning for them to have. And so as Mike's described Tessa, one of the great things about that story, about bringing Tessa into being this year, is that we have been sort of exploring how do we create this piece for maybe this gap where these kids become passionate about nature, but we don't have a program for those kids that have demonstrated a need that they may want an interest in the environmental sciences. And so we may lose some of them at that age. And so we created Tessa as a way to fill that need. And more kids are going into this field of study. And Teatown Camp, as you know, is a huge part of our legacy and our 50 years. And as part of our 50-year celebration, we're having our first ever camp alumni reunion.
Oh, I did read about that.
Yeah.
Okay, that is going to be fun.
Yeah, it's coming up in October, and you can find more about it on our website, www.teatown.org. But we're bringing back campers from years past, and as Mike said, there's a lot of stories from kids who have been to camp, and oftentimes not just been to camp several years, but become counselors. It's such an important part of the fabric of their life. They really never leaves them, those experiences growing up, and the leadership experiences coming into their own in nature as they do at Teatown. So that'll be a really fun part of our 50th celebration.
Right. Well, actually, even if they don't go into environmental sciences, say they go into business, well, as they're looking at their business opportunities, hopefully they're thinking about their environment. Maybe they're going to build a corporate headquarters or something, and they would think about that whole aspect of their environment and, maybe the energy needs and so on that they could change.
They always have such nice things to say about Teatown, the sense of community and belonging they felt there, that obviously something was stirred in them. And for example, recently we found out to our pleasant surprise that one of our camp alumnus, Chris Filardi, went on to become a director with the Director of Environmental Science Pacific Region for the American Museum of Natural History. And that's a pretty esteemed title, and he was a Teatown alumnus. And he came back one day and knocked on Mike's door and introduced himself.
Talked a little bit, yeah.
And basically, told us, it began for him, at Teatown Camp.
Yeah.
Right, that's really great.
So we're
really
sending, there's that sense of the ripple in the pond, and that people are going out into the world, and that Teatown, played an important part in that.
Right. Absolutely. So it's important for everybody to network with Teatown one way or another. I know you have you have maple that's coming out of trees at some point, but I'm not sure it's as good as it had been. Right?
We won the award, right?
Did you win the award?
Yeah, for the best tasting maple syrup.
Yeah.
I think
That's
it
great.
was the third time we've won, and I think we're the only organization that's ever won it 3 times.
We have to give a shout out to Phyllis Bach,
Yeah.
the longtime director of education at Teatown,
Right.
and her merry maids of the sugaring house, as she calls them. And it is a labor of love.
Absolutely.
And we don't look at ourselves as being a producer of syrup in the sense that it's not our core business, but certainly the education aspect of it. They do it extremely well. And so many kids, really thousands of kids, have come through that sugaring house that was built originally by the first Teatown director, Warren Balgulian, many, many years ago. And so it's still standing today. And kids remember the experience of going in the sugar house and learning how maple syrup is made.
So you actually have a little store, and very small, at Teatown, right? So people can go and buy the maple syrup.
They can buy it, but unfortunately, Sandy, it's sold out.
Oh my
It's sold
goodness.
out.
Very limited quantities.
Right,
It's sold out.
right.
You can't produce enough.
But it's great. You have Wildflower Island too. I really, really love. Well, I'm a gardener. I can't say that I have all natural plants in my garden. I have a mix of all kinds of things, but I love going on Wildflower Island, and is that kind of a highlight in one of when you let people know about Teatown, that there's also this very special place, because it is really a special place.
It absolutely is. It's one of the, I would say, one of the really truly iconic signature elements of Teatown. And Mike talked a little bit about Wildflower Woods, which is the envelope that contains Wildflower Island, but people are so passionate about the wildflowers. And I'm sure Mike can give you a little bit of background about what makes it unique. Obviously, there's a very huge variety of wildflowers, and people will come from far and wide to to see it and experience it.
Yep, 230 species of flowers on the island. The island's been in existence since I think 1985 or so. It opened up to the public, and it's amazing. It's mostly run by volunteers who do absolutely tremendous job giving guided tours. The information that they provide is just absolutely it's impressive. And we have a curator who cares for the island who does a wonderful job. It's really a special place, and we say that is what the Forest of Westchester should look like. So it's a nice example if you're interested in, I keep saying what the forest should look like. That's a great example to go see Wildflower Island.
And it just seems like at any time of the year, it's got something else that's happening there.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Right, which is really great.
Yeah, from May when the lady slippers are out till August, September to the later flowering species. It's really a treat to visit.
So Kevin, as we kind of wrap up, you've had 50 years. You've only been there the last year,
Yeah,
so
I'm
it's
a
new to
newbie
you.
compared to the rest of these guys.
But so what are you looking at? Where do you go from there? Are you doing an assessment of Teatown's history and what works, what's new, what's happening? Trees aren't new, but certain plants aren't new, but
I think we're continuing a tradition of vision and innovation, and really trying to be relevant when it comes to our education. So having Dr. Mike really and be in the front of his field and keep us connected to the latest environmental science, making sure that informs all of our education programs. And I think it is bringing in new tools. Certainly my background in science museums and children's museums means let's make sure we use all the storytelling tools that we can. There's nothing like the direct experience of nature, and that's always been there. But more than ever now, we've got to reveal, we've got to tell the story, we've got to get people to carefully observe what's happening, because if they observe, they understand. And if they understand, they'll be inclined to protect. So it's really about using more tools that we may not have used before. And some of those are virtual tools. Some of those, might be in the online world as well as at the preserve at Teatown. But it's figuring out ways to make sure that we're having the impact that we really want. So we'll be looking at the whole Teatown campus and all the property and all of our buildings to really reimagine them. And it's going to be an exciting next half century for us.
Right. Well, it will be great. And if anybody wants to know about what's going on at Teatown, what's the website?
It's www.teatown.org.
I just want to thank both you, Kevin and Mike, for being here and highlighting all the good work that has happened over 50 years with Teatown Reservation in Osney, Newcastle, Yorktown, Cortland, near the Taconic, 134, whatever. We hope everybody in the audience will get a chance to go and participate and see what a beautiful place it is and really enjoy nature. And you've done a great job. So I want to thank you both for being here. And
Thank you,
thank
Sandy.
you all for watching. And if you have any questions about what you've heard today, please give me a call at my office, 914-941-1111. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Thanks.